when being the black sheep becomes your superpower. Have you ever been told you're too much, too loud, too sensitive, too different? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Elaine Durden, a woman whose revolutionary work has transformed thousands of lives across generations. Elaine isn't just another self help guru, she's a visionary who has dedicated her life to helping people alchemize their family pain into profound purpose. Her insights have shattered conventional wisdom about family dynamics and offered a radical new perspective that I simply cannot keep to myself. What Elaine shared wasn't just inspiring, it was revolutionary. The kind of perspective shift that makes you question everything you thought you knew about your place in your family. She's dedicated decades to helping others break generational cycles of dysfunction, teaching that the very qualities that make someone the black sheep are often the exact qualities needed to heal entire family systems. The truth is, we've been looking at family outcasts all wrong. Imagine for a moment that you're at a family reunion. Everyone's laughing, sharing inside jokes, falling into familiar patterns, except for one person who sits slightly apart, who questions traditions, who somehow never quite fits the mold. That person, often labeled difficult, dramatic, or defiant, might actually be the family's greatest hope for evolution. This isn't about villainizing families. It's about recognizing that sometimes the person who causes the most trouble is simply the one brave enough to name what isn't working. When I asked Elaine about this phenomenon, she leaned forward with intensity and said something I'll never forget. The black sheep isn't the problem in the family. The black sheep is the one who refuses to ignore the problem. Let that sink in for a moment. The person who gets labeled as too much is often just too honest about what's happening, too unwilling to participate in dysfunction, too committed to authenticity to play along with harmful patterns. But here's where it gets complicated. Being that person hurts. It hurts deeply. Dr. Thema Bryan Davis knows this pain intimately. As a licensed psychologist who grew up surrounded by intergenerational trauma, she felt the sting of being different. Her family didn't understand why she questioned things, why she couldn't just go with the flow like everyone else. That isolation, that feeling of being fundamentally misunderstood by the very people who should know you best, created wounds that followed her for years. But what Dr. Brian Davis did with that pain is where her story becomes extraordinary. Instead of letting it harden her, she used it as a compass. She pursued education, therapy, and spiritual practices that helped her understand the patterns she was breaking. Today, as the fourth Black woman ever to serve as president of the American Psychological Association, she uses her platform to teach others that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's liberation. I remember sitting across from Elaine as she shared Dr. Brian Davis's journey and watching her eyes light up as she explained. This is what happens when the black sheep embraces their power. They don't just heal themselves, they create pathways for others. Forgiveness, Elaine told me, echoing Dr. Brian Davis's philosophy, isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about refusing to let bitterness poison your future. This is where so many of us get stuck. We think forgiveness means excusing harmful behavior or pretending it didn't happen. But that's not forgiveness, that's denial. Real forgiveness is saying, what happened was wrong. It hurt me deeply, and I refuse to let that pain define the rest of my life. That's not weakness, that's power. Lisa Nichols embodies this power. Labeled the black sheep after becoming a single mother at 19 while struggling financially, her family didn't just disagree with her choices. Many actively criticized and ostracized her. The pain of that rejection could have broken her. Instead, it fueled her. She founded Motivating the Masses Inc., now one of America's top training companies. She's a best selling author who's been featured on Oprah multiple times. But her greatest achievement, raising a son who graduated college against all odds, breaking cycles of limitation that had defined her family for generations. What struck me about Lisa's story wasn't just her professional success, it was how she refused to internalize the negative labels her family placed on her. Every day, she practiced affirmations rooted in faith. She invested every resource into building both herself and her business. Most importantly, she prioritized raising her son in an environment free from the toxicity she had experienced, even when faced with ongoing judgment about her parenting decisions. When I shared Lisa's story with Elaine, she nodded knowingly. That's exactly it, she said. Being the black sheep isn't a curse, it's a calling. It means you're the trailblazer, not the troublemaker. Think about that shift in perspective. What if the very qualities that make you feel like you don't belong are actually gifts? What if your unwillingness to participate in dysfunction isn't a flaw but a superpower? Dr. Ramani Durvasula's work supports this reframing. As a clinical psychologist specializing in narcissistic abuse recovery, she's seen firsthand how family systems often scapegoat the healthiest member. The person who questions, who sets boundaries, who refuses to enable harmful behavior becomes labeled as the problem. Dr. Ramani knows this pattern intimately because she lived it. Growing up under narcissistic parental dynamics, she endured emotional manipulation that threatened her self worth throughout adolescence. She struggled with guilt over setting boundaries against toxic behaviors, the exact guilt that so many survivors of narcissistic family systems carry. But Dr. Ramani's research shows something fascinating. These family problems often grow up to build the healthiest relationships in their adult lives. Why? Because they've done the work of examining patterns, questioning assumptions, and committing to something better. Dr. Ramani chose a path of healing rather than bitterness. She sought professional therapy alongside spiritual practices like meditation and yoga. She committed herself fully to raising emotionally intelligent children unburdened by inherited trauma cycles. Today, she's built healthy relationships within her own household based on unconditional acceptance rather than approval seeking or fear. During our conversation, Elaine Durden emphasized this point repeatedly. Leading with love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and future generations is to say, this stops with me. This stops with me. Four simple words with the power to change family legacies forever. But how do we actually do this? How do we transform from feeling like the misunderstood outcast to standing confidently as the cycle breaker? Elaine shared three powerful strategies that have helped countless people make this shift. First, recognize that forgiveness is a superpower, not a weakness. When you forgive those who've hurt you, especially within your family, you're not excusing their actions. You're freeing yourself from carrying the weight of bitterness. True forgiveness allows you to reclaim your peace and joy, break cycles of negativity, and become an example for others to follow. I love how Dr. Maya Angelou put it. Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude. It's a daily practice of choosing freedom over resentment. Second, reframe what it means to be the black sheep. If you felt like the odd one out in your family, know that this difference is often a sign of strength, not shame. Black sheep are uniquely positioned to challenge generational patterns, inspire change, and model resilience by living authentically despite adversity. As Elaine said, your difference isn't your defect, it's your destiny. Finally, lead with love, even when it's hard. No matter what negativity comes your way, choose love as your guiding principle. By creating an environment filled with love for yourself and those around you, especially children, you set new standards for future generations. This doesn't mean becoming a doormat. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a firm boundary. But the motivation behind that boundary comes from love for yourself, love for the person you're setting the boundary with, and love for the future you're creating. When I asked Elaine what message she most wanted to share with those who feel like outsiders in their own families, her answer was both simple and profound. Your difference is divine. The very things that make you feel like you don't belong are often the gifts that will help heal not just yourself, but generations to come. Your difference is divine, not a mistake, not a problem, divine. So today I challenge you to do something radical. Embrace your role as the black sheep. Stop apologizing for being too much. Start recognizing that your sensitivity, your questions, your unwillingness to participate in dysfunction, these aren't flaws to overcome. They're superpowers to harness. Choose one person who has hurt you deeply and intentionally release any lingering resentment toward them, not for their sake, but for yours. Write down what forgiveness could look like, not necessarily reconciliation, and reflect on how letting go creates space for your own healing. Remember that being different doesn't make you difficult, it makes you necessary in a world that desperately needs healing. The ones who refuse to perpetuate broken patterns are the ones who create new possibilities. The next time someone calls you too much, too sensitive, too loud, too different, smile and say thank you. Because being too much might be exactly what your family needs to evolve. Being the black sheep isn't your cross to bear, it's your crown to wear. And from where I stand, it looks absolutely magnificent on you.